Welcome. If you are watching this, I will assume you have watched the 2006 CBS series Jericho. This is a conclusion of that story. The first event since the end of the series will be the Battle of Jericho between the government of Allied States of America or the ASA and the citizens of Jericho, with Major Edward Beck and his men siding with Jericho. The ASA government in Cheyenne declared Jericho a rebellion and send its troops, but the people of Jericho try to hold their ground with help from the people of New Bern and Major Beck and his soldiers. On the battle many will fall, including the mayor Gary Anderson and Major Beck. The town of Jericho get bombarded by airstrike and destroyed. Phil Constantino and his men perish from the airstrike. Eric survive and lead Emily, Stanley, and Mimi, the only other survivors, to save his mother and girlfriend. When they reach the Greennesses' house, they found two armed vehicles parked outside and ASA soldiers firing into the house. Eric and his crew ambush them from behind and kill all the soldiers. They enter the house to find Pamela and Mary's dead body. Heartbroken, the remaining survivors plan to flee to Texas or Columbus, Ohio, but Eric refuses and has a plan to go to Cheyenne instead. He tries to go there alone to avenge the death of his mother and girlfriend, but Emily insists on going with him. Stanley and Mimi decide to go to Columbus. They take the radio to listen to the location of the ASA army and the satellite phone to call each other once they reach their destination, and drive in different directions in the armored trucks. In a Texas hospital, the Texas government officials come to see Jake and Robert. They take them to the governor's office, where Robert explains how the initial attacks were orchestrated by the government's military contracting firm, Ravenwood, owned by Jennings and Rail and Thomas Valente, the former director of the FBI. With this information and the evidence of the bomb, the governor of Texas made a declaration of unity with Allied States and the government in Columbus, Ohio. In Cheyenne, President Tamarquillo watched the announcement on television, and he was frustrated when Valente walked in and told him to calm down. And they are now at war with both the Republic of Texas and the Allied States, and the first thing they have to do is suppress this information, because if the citizens of Cheyenne find out they were behind the attacks, they will come for their heads. Tamarquillo didn't like being talked down to like that and tried to threaten Valente, who put him down and told him he is just a figurehead with good looks, and in reality the citizens of the western states belong to Ravenwood, and told him to be a good boy and assemble the citizens of Cheyenne for a war. The internet in Cheyenne gets turned off, blocking access to all of western states. The media tells the citizens to calm down and the president will make an announcement soon. The ASA army breaks into the Texas embassy and kills the ambassador and the Texas National Guard members protecting it. Eric and Emily watch the embassy on fire from far as they drive to the city. They decide to ditch the vehicle and walk to the city. In Texas, the governor got the news of the attack and tell his generals to get ready for a war. Jake, who was there when the governor gave the order, tried to stop him by telling him Texas couldn't take the entire ASA by itself and they need the support of the Allied States in Columbus. The governor agrees and make arrangement to send him and Robert to Columbus to present the evidence they got to the president of the Allied States. Robert and Jake board another plane to go to Columbus, Ohio. On the plane, Robert got a call from his wife Darcy. She informed him of the fall of Jericho, how she and her kids escaped before the war started. He told her to meet him in Columbus and to be careful. He ended the phone call and tell Jake the bad news. Jake asks who survived, but Robert has no answer. Jake was heartbroken and tell Robert he was sick of all the death around him and they have to stop the coming war. Robert couldn't see any way of doing that, but Jake informed him all they have to do is inform all the citizens of the western states who perpetrated the nuclear attack, and they will not support the government in Cheyenne, and they can bring the criminals to justice without a civil war. Stanley and Mimi reach the Allied States checkpoint, systematically avoiding the ASA checkpoints. The border guards open fire on them and incapacitate the armored truck. They got arrested by the Allied States military and got leaded to the captain in charge of the checkpoint, whom they informed how they escaped the western states and the bombardment of Jericho. He arranged them transportation to Columbus so that they could tell their story to his superiors. In Columbus, Jake and Robert present the evidence to the president and his security advisors, and the ambassador of Texas, who was there with them, informed the president Texas is ready to join the Allied States if the president supports their war efforts against the western states. The president told him the days of the president unilaterally declaring war is over, and he instead will present the case to Congress, and if the Congress votes for the declaration of war, they will support them in their war effort. Jake interject and inform them if they declare war, they will be declaring war on the American people who leave West and not on Ravenwood, the actual criminals. The president then asks him how they can bring Ravenwood and Valente to justice since they control the western states. Jake tell him all they have to do is broadcast the evidence to the citizens on the western states and they would stop supporting Tamarquillo and arrest him themselves. The president told him he got only a couple of days to stop the war. Until he gets the vote in Congress. After that, at a press conference, Jake and Robert were behind the president at the podium when he addressed the nation. He announced Iran and North Korea were not the perpetrators of the attack, but it was Ravenwood and Thomas Valente who were behind the attacks, and his government will do anything to bring these criminals to justice. Stanley and Mimi were at the military base in Columbus when they see Jake and Robert on TV, and they was glad to see them alive. Mimi turned to Stanley and told him they have to get to Jake to tell him where his brother is. Stanley calls Eric on the satellite phone and tells him his brother is alive. Eric told him he has to get to Jake. Stanley told the military leader Jake and Robert were his friends from Jericho and how he could contact him. The military leader told him he has a contact in the Secret Service and they could help him, and he make a call to his contact and told Stanley Jake is in a hotel near the new Capitol. Stanley and Mimi thanked him and they go to the hotel to meet Jake in Cheyenne. Stanley and Mimi were at the military base in Columbus when they see Jake and Robert on TV, and they was glad to see them alive. Mimi turned to Stanley and told him they have to get to Jake to tell him where his brother is. Stanley calls Eric on the satellite phone and tells him his brother is alive. Eric told him he has to get to Jake. Stanley told the military leader Jake and Robert were his friends from Jericho and how he could contact them. The military leader told him he has a contact in the Secret Service and they could help him. He make a call to his contact and told Stanley Jake is in a hotel near the new Capitol. Stanley and Mimi thanked him and they go to the hotel to meet Jake in Cheyenne. Eric told Emily Jake was alive. She hugged him with joy and told him to pause his suicidal mission and wait until he speak to Jake before taking any action. He agreed. In Columbus, Stanley and Mimi arrived at the hotel, but it was surrounded by journalists and fenced in by security. With no way of getting in, Mimi made a large sign that read "Alive in Jericho," but with all the pushing and shoving they couldn't reach the front. As they standing there hopeless, a car comes between the hotel and the people. Darcy and her kids gets out of the car and walk to the entrance to the hotel. Mimi and Stanley scream their names and wave. Allison saw them and stop her mother and point them out to her mom. Security let Stanley and Mimi pass and they enter the hotel together. Inside the hotel, after the cries and hugs, Stanley tells Jake his brother and Emily are alive in Cheyenne. They call him together, and on the call Eric told Jake their mother was killed. Jake told him he got an idea to take down Ravenwood once and for all. And he shouldn't take a hasty action. He asks Robert, who was playing with his family, if he could talk to him. Robert say okay as soon as they get some privacy. Jake tell Robert he has a plan to take down Ravenwood. Robert interrupts him and told him he is done and he and his family will be going to Maine to avoid the coming war. Jake says okay, but ask Robert to do him one last favor. The next morning Jake record Robert detailing who orchestrated the nuclear attack and how they do it. They say their goodbyes and Robert and his family leave for Maine. Jake tells his brother there is a way of communicating the FBI uses when Richard worked there. And all Eric has to do is find Chung's laptop. He gives Eric Chung's address. Eric and Emily sneak into Chung's apartment and find the laptop, after searching the entire place. Eric calls his brother and tells him he has found the laptop. Jake shows him how to connect to the satellite network and send him the video of Richard explaining who perpetuated the attack. And tells him to broadcast the video in Western States Network. Eric transferred the video into a flash drive and left the apartment with Emily. Eric and Emily sit in a car that used to belong to Chung in a parking space in front of the Cheyenne television network. Eric asked Emily if she is ready and she assured him she was. He plugs a silencer on his pistol and they go to the building. He chalks out the guard guarding the back entrance and they enter the building. Emily flirts with two other security guards while Eric sneaks past them. She follows him. They sneak into the control room where Eric points his gun and tells all the technicians to get down to the ground and ask one of the technicians to get up. He hand the gun to Emily and tell her to watch the rest of the hostages. He hand the technician the flash drive and tell him to broadcast what is on the drive. When the video start broadcasting, the hostages watch in awe the description of events by Richard and the video of the unexploded bomb. During this the door broken down and the guards enter shooting. They kill Eric. Emily shoot back and kill one of the guards, injuring the other, but at this point it was all over because the information was out. Emily runs out of the studio unnoticed by the people focusing on what is being broadcasted on the television. She got back to the car and starts crying. She called Jake to tell him it's done and Eric didn't make it. Jake was heartbroken but tell her to leave Cheyenne and drive east to Columbus. Jake run across the street to the media waiting. and tells them there is no need for the war because Western states have risen up and the Ravenwood government has fallen. Emily sees a riot across the city as she drives away. People put the ASA Capitol on fire and tore down the flag. Emily safely makes it to the border where the checkpoints are abandoned and the ASA flag replaced by the United States flag. She finally reaches her destination, meets Jake on the streets of Columbus where they share a kiss. The end. I hope this video gives you a closure on the series Jericho. Subscribe for the next video, which will be on the 2008 CBS sitcom Gary Unmarried. I will see you then.